name is Kyle Cornell, and I'm a graduate student at the Binghamton University Philosophy Department. This presentation is for the 2021 International Social Philosophy Conference, which is sponsored by the North American Society for Social Philosophy. The title of my talk is Against Valuing Rational Agency. It is a talk in meta-ethics, working with Korsgaard and Williams. My remarks will be somewhat syncopated for time's sake, but I hope you enjoy it. The argument I'd like to advance, the conclusion I'd like to argue for, is that it's perfectly possible to act without rational agency, and in fact it's very common and a part of who we are as humans. And as such, we can conceive ourselves as not being essentially rational agents, and therefore we evade the relevant evaluative standards. A little bit of background, a little context first, right? Korsgaard in Source of Normativity presents a neo-Kantian account of ethics, but part of that account is being committed to the essential rational character of human beings. Human beings are essentially rational agents, and as such, if they want to do anything at all, then they have to be employing their rational capacity, their rational agency, and therefore they're committed to being good rational agents. They are committed to the evaluative standards relevant to being a rational agent. I intend, as I've just mentioned, to argue the opposite and to insist upon the opposite. Human beings are not essentially rational agents. As I'll talk about a bit later, human beings are often stuck acting. They are stuck acting and have no choice but to act, whether or not they have reasons. Right? What it means to act is a bit of a point of contention. I won't have time to discuss it during this presentation, but it is a good topic potentially for outside of the presentation. But first, right, I'd like to talk a little bit about what I mean by evading the evaluative standards. I've spoken a bit about this already, but simply put, as Bernard Williams notes in Morality and Introduction, human beings have roles that they play in their lives, and those roles have evaluative standards, right, endemic to them. What it means to be a good chef, right? A good philosopher, which is the example I like to use, right? I might identify as a philosopher. And as a consequence, someone might insist or ask that I change my behavior or to do something with the motivation being that I'm a philosopher and therefore I should be a good one, right? Good philosophers read and write, and therefore someone might say to me at any given time, you should be doing more reading and more writing. But as Williams notes, very often human beings may dissociate from those roles by providing responses of the following sort, right? I might not be a good philosopher as you conceive of it. I might not be a philosopher simplicator as you conceive of it. I have a different vision of what it means to be this thing. Or I simply have better things to do with my life right now than to do what would make me a good philosopher at the moment. The point being is that they're all variations of saying that this role that I may adopt is not essential to me. As he puts it in his reply to Korsgaard in Source of Normativity, it is a time when we just say, I just so happen to be X. I just so happen to be a philosopher. And to make a response of the kinds that I am attempting to provide would be to say something something along the lines of, I just so happen to be a rational agent. It's not essential to me and to what I am and to what I'm doing. I attempt to do so using some examples, and that that some test audiences seem to find compelling, and so I'd like to show them all to you today. This example is not mine, but is an example from Sources of Normativity itself that Korsgaard uses to discuss some of the issues, that are related to this point in her theory, right? For Korsgaard, human beings and their consciousness has a reflective structure, such that in order to act, they need to endorse whatever they're doing for particular reasons, right? And the example she uses is trying to figure out what she's going to do with her afternoon. My take on this example is that that afternoon that all of us might have is going to spend itself regardless of whether or not of what we do. We are going to spend our afternoon in some way, whether or not we have a reason, because it's an afternoon, it's going to happen. And that afternoon will happen, and we will be participating in that afternoon, whether or not we have a a reason, or have come to a reason good enough by our own lights to do it a particular way. The takeaway that I pulled from this example is that there's nowhere, even in well-defined or safe or secure decisions, nowhere to stand behind the situation to deliberate. And because of that fact, it makes it very often the case that whether or not we have a reason, we're going to be doing something with this situation. We're going to be acting in some way. Here's some more maybe morally salient examples. Call this one the troubled marriage case. The troubled marriage case. I like to read it aloud. I suppose I'm conflicted about whether to leave my spouse. Perhaps they have violated my trust in a deep way, or I'm dissatisfied with our relationship. But I've also spent a great deal of time building trust and rapport with them, and my life is built around them, rendering the decision to leave risky and uncertain. Every day that I deliberate is a day that I choose to stay, for not leaving is constitutive of one of the major contentious options of deliberation. This is important. I choose to tell them that I love them and to hear them say it back to me, to make our bed, to do the dishes, to share meals and listen to them talk and so forth. But does that mean that my choice to do all of these things means that I have found by my own lights a reason good enough to stay? Hardly. Does it mean that I am solely or safely deliberating, or that I am not participating? Precisely the opposite, actually. And so we can hopefully see from an example like this more what I'm talking about. There's nowhere to stand behind for us to deliberate in any given situation. And as a consequence, we're very often always acting or participating in the situations that we are involved in, regardless of whether or not we have a reason to. Let me present another example that has also gotten some positive feedback. Imagine I'm told by a mutual friend a very sensitive secret in confidence that they're at the movies with someone on a given night. A couple days later, however, I'm blindsided in public by a mutual friend, one who also trusts me, and they ask me, where my secret holder was on that given night, and it becomes clear to me that they had an arrangement which my friend's tryst to the movies had violated. The analysis goes something like this. My friend is asking me a question, one that matters deeply to them, and even the slightest hesitation or conflict may suggest that I'm lying, should I choose to. My friend may see the widening in my eyes, the hiking of my shoulders, and the wordless, dumbfounded noise coming out of my mouth, and they may see that I have information relevant to their question that I should not have if the answer looked anything like how my friend would like it to look. And the unpacking of this example goes something like this, that our situations are ones in our relationships, and the things that we participate in, all of our morally relevant choices, are ones that we're already in very often. And as a consequence, it's not as if whatever actions that we take, or whatever we end up doing within that situation, is one that we will have any reason at all that we have thought about for any length of time. It's not actually as if, right, what matters to us is gated behind our rational capacity, that we won't be able to do anything with it without coming up with a reason to do it in any particular way or another. What it is that we're doing with our lives is not necessarily essentially reason-laden. The conclusions, it becomes perfectly possible to conceive of myself as not essentially a rational agent, and therefore allows me to evade those kinds of relevant evaluative standards. There are other very interesting questions, right, about the ability to provide universal overriding reason accounts of ethics, right, whether it is possible moving forward, whether we can ask questions like, how should I live my life, right, philosophic bread and butter questions. And I think these scenarios present examples that I am tentatively calling from here forward underdetermined decisions, right? Broaching the possibility that we might not have any reason by our own lights at all to go any one way in a particular situation, despite it perhaps very deeply involving us. I have quite a few remarks about this. I've been thinking about it for some time, but I am always open to more contact and discussion, especially from all of you. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.